Hey guys, so I thought we would take a look at Ujjayi breathing today. I think that sometimes we get so caught up in the wonderful world of asana poses that we tend to forget a little bit about the other aspects of the yoga practice, one of which is the breathing techniques that we use. And that's okay, it's normal. After all, we all want to be flexible and we want to be strong and do all those wonderful poses that we've been working so hard for. But it is important to have breath and to know how to breathe properly, especially when we're doing a flow-based class, because we want to stay safe. The faster we breathe, the more our body remains sort of in fight or flight mode. So we want to give ourselves a chance to learn how to breathe properly and steadily. In yoga we say that we can measure our years not by, the time that goes by, but by how many breaths we take. So we want to take as many breaths as possible and live as healthy a life as possible for as long as possible. And when we are practicing vinyasa-based practices, basically flow-based practices, a lot of times we can get caught up in the quickness of the count or what's going on in the room, and we forget how to breathe. And it's important to pay close attention to our breath in order to remain safe. We want to keep everything nice and steady. We want to remind our bodies that we're here to heal, to become closer to ourselves, to find some way to love more deeply, and to just expand. So, a couple of things that I think help sometimes when you're trying to practice Ujjayi is, number one, don't be afraid. It seems really intimidating because it's loud and we're used to breathing really quietly. We don't normally want people to hear us breathing. In fact, we kind of want the opposite. We want quiet breathing so that we don't disturb the people around us. Now, if you are in a movie or, I don't know, with a couple of friends for dinner, you probably wouldn't want to do Ujjayi then. But in a yoga room, when you're doing a practice, it's perfectly okay to be heard. In fact, that's what you need to be working toward. So also think about it in this way. Whether you're practicing at home or whether you're in a room with a bunch of other people, the ability to hear the breath is very empowering. Now, Ujjayi means victorious. So you wouldn't go around and celebrate a victory like this, yay, victory. No, you want to get that awesome, like this is a victory, I'm victorious. Way up here, energy way through the roof, excited, feeling of power and love and emotion. So think about that when you're thinking about your Ujjayi breath. So if you're breathing like this, we need to work on your victory edge, right? Think about victorious breath. It's loud, it's audible, it's there. It's meant to be noticed. Number one, you want to think about breathing through the diaphragm instead of through the upper chest. And that sometimes takes a little bit of work, especially if you're not someone who, performs or sings for a living, right? Because we don't normally breathe through the diaphragm. We usually just breathe up here, and that's the way that we live, and that's fine. But when we're practicing yoga, we really want to start falling more into the diaphragm. And there's many reasons for this. One of those is you're actually making a little more space inside. So think about creating spaciousness for yourself and generating more capacity for oxygen. You also can look at it, if you're not sure what the diaphragm is or how it works or how you would even start using it, think about it this way. You want to start the breath from the belly and the rib cage so that the belly feels almost like it's rising or pushing forward if you're sitting, or up if you're lying down. And you want to think about the sides of the body expanding out to the sides, almost like the balloon is inflating inside and pushing sideways. That's the best sort of imagery I can give you for the Ujjayi breath. So, start at the belly, move into the rib cage, expand, then slowly the breath will move into the chest. Same thing on the way out. You want to start at the belly, then start to move into the rib cage, and that'll slowly come into the chest. You're breathing in and out through the nose only. There are a few times where some teachers will say to exhale through the mouth, and that's okay if the teacher cues it. But for the most part, you want to make a conscious effort to breathe only through the nose. And I know that sometimes can be difficult, especially around allergy season, but It's manageable and it's great. So belly, rib cage, then chest, breathing in and out through the nose. Now, how do we start getting into that sound? A lot of people say it sounds like the waves of the ocean, and that's true. I think it's a combination of things. It sounds like the ocean some days. Some days it sounds a little like Darth Vader. And some other days it sounds as if the wind was just gushing through the trees. Have you ever been outside where the trees are just being moved back and forth, and it's such a beautiful, crisp, and strong sound? Think about it that way. That's how your breath should feel. Strong, powerful, crisp, clear, filled with life and love. And the way that I started learning UjaiiBreath was, well, number one, I was kind of breathing Ujjayi everywhere. My car, while I was watching a movie, while I was with my husband. It probably got a little annoying, but I finally learned how to approach my Ujjayi breath. So I was very grateful for that. So you do have to practice. It's not something that you can do only like once a week and then let it go and then forget again, because then you'll fall out of practice with it. So you want to continue to always keep that up. And then it works sometimes to have a few visuals. If you're, a visual person like myself, you could stand in front of the mirror or grab a hand mirror and start to work with the idea of fogging it up, right? So imagine this is your mirror, or you can just use your hand. And you're going to exhale so deeply that the mirror will get fogged up. That's why I recommend the actual mirror. So you're going to take a deep inhale and fog it up. Now, same sound on the inhale. Let's practice. Again. One last time. So you'll start to notice the back of the throat gets really dry when you do this, and you're going to feel like you need to drink some water. But that's actually sort of the sensation that you're going for with Ujjayi breath, because what you're doing is you're filtering all the breath through the nose, in and out through the nose, through the diaphragm, and you're finding a very gentle constriction or activation to the very back of the throat to make that sound. And that's why we go, it's almost like saying the word ha on an inhale and on an exhale. That accesses that gentle constriction to the back of the throat, and that's how you start to get sort of used to how it sounds. Now, of course, it's easier to hear that sound and to generate that sound through the mouth. But if you start practicing with the mirror or with your hand, I know this looks silly, but it's true. But if you start practicing, you'll start to get used to that sound. It won't be so terrifying, as to just suddenly being there surrounded by a bunch of other people and having to breathe pretty audibly, because that can be sometimes very intimidating. Now, get used to that idea, and then think ha sound on every inhale and on every exhale. Ha through the nose. So that would sound a little bit like this. Again. So another thing that helped me a lot to get into that rhythm or that sound of the breath was to take the very tip of my tongue to the upper palate close to the front teeth. And that helped me access the back of the throat a little bit more. That can help, but if it's too much and it's too uncomfortable for you, because it can be sometimes, you can also just let the tongue rest and think more about that ha sound. So these are all just little tips that might help you along the way, so you're not so intimidated by that crazy sound and that crazy breath. And You want to start connecting every inhale directly into every exhale, making almost like a little wave. So you start to get the breath connected into itself, and then you start to connect the breath into the movement. So then we start to find this really beautiful sort of meditation in movement, and it starts to generate all this energy that you need for the yoga practice. It's a beautiful connection, and it starts to change you from the inside out. I know it sounds very hippie, but it's true. So, this is what it would look like putting everything together in motion: breath and movement. You also want to start thinking about almost threading that breath into the movement and pulling at it like taffy, because there's going to be times where you might feel like an exhale or an inhale are not going to quite get you there. For example, when you're practicing Surya Namaskara B, or Sun Salutation B, where you go into chair and back down, slowly moving into plank, chaturanga, up dog. As soon as you move into down dog in B, you have to start using the same exhale that you used to move into down dog, to move the right foot forward, flatten the left heel down, and come up into your warrior pose. So if you don't pull at it like taffy, you're going to feel stuck. Right? Now, when you're first beginning, you're more than welcome to take like a little break, right? So that your exhale, maybe a little inhale, exhale, step the foot down, and then start to find your way through the first warrior. But little by little, you want to start accessing that connectivity. And that's actually going to help you so that you don't feel so winded, because there are specific vinyasas or flows, sort of like Surya B, Sun Salutation B, that are very cardiovascular and almost aerobic. So you're going to start to feel like you're running out of breath. The more that you can start connecting the breath together and pulling at it like taffy, the more that you can use all of these little tools, the better the practice is going to feel in the body, and the more juice you're going to get out of your practice, really. So remember, when you're practicing, always UjaiiBreath, unless you're in a restorative class, or unless the teacher tells you to exhale through the mouth. And you want to let it be heard. Let the people around you hear you. Let yourself hear that breath. It's empowering, and it's also helpful, because if you're in a class with a bunch of people and perhaps the count has gone a little too fast, or you've lost where you were in your breath, or someone else around you has lost where they were in the breath, hearing somebody else's breath will save them, per se. It'll bring them right back into that flow. So it's really a way of getting deeper into the community, of connecting with one another, of helping each other out, and finding more space for ourselves to just breathe more like Darth Vader. Breathe more like yogis. So it's a wonderful, wonderful kind of breath, and I thought that I would make this little video for you guys. I hope you've enjoyed.